Today we're going to do a little unboxing action and first run in the New Balance Rebel V4, which we got right here. Now, I still have some life left on my Rebel V3, so it's going to be really interesting to do a little bit of comparison to these guys. And we've also been getting in a lot of these new marathon racers lately. We have the Hoka Cielo X, we have the Diodora Gara, we have the Tier Valkyrie Elite down there, the New Balance SC Elite V4. And so with that, I know I'm accumulating a bit of a collection here, and it's not exactly sitting with me right that I still have so much life left in some of these shoes. So I am designing a marketplace where we can buy and sell some of these gently loved shoes, because I don't want to encourage mindless consumerism on this channel. I want to make sure that these shoes are being able to be used by people who can get the most benefit out of them. For example, I have these Brooks Hyperion Max here, which only have about 50 miles, maybe not even, and they just didn't work for me. So I would love to get rid of these, sell them for as cheap as possible, just pay for shipping and send them to someone who can use that. So I am going to put a link below to the wait list. I'm going to probably put these Pro 3s on there as well, some of these other shoes, and I will open it up so that you guys can add the shoes that you're not running in as well, any gently loved shoes, so that we can spread the joy around of getting miles in some of these great shoes that we have. I don't want to just hoard these things. I want to make sure all these great shoes are being put to use. So with that, go sign up for the marketplace and let's get into this Rebel first run. Now, the Rebel V3, if you've been following this channel, you would know this was one of my favorite shoes of 2023. I loved how flexible it was. I loved this soft, squishy, but also bouncy and really fast fuel cell foam. It's a supercritical EVA TPU blend. And I love that the shoe retained a pretty lightweight, but also had just enough cushion to help me pick up the pace for my half marathon training block last year. So I put some of my best workouts in these things. I think they have about 250 miles on them. So enough life left where I'll be able to do some pretty good comparisons to the Rebel V4, but they're not in my normal rotation anymore. I've retired them to gym and just occasional use when I want to have fun with this fuel cell again. All right, let's get into it. Boom. New Balance Rebel Fuel Cell V4. Let's go, baby. Bang. Bang. Hey, these are fire. I thought these were going to be black. They're more of a navy. Now that is a lot cleaner than I thought. Nice job, New Balance. So the first thing I'm noticing about this Rebel V4 is that the fuel cell we have in here feels a lot softer than the fuel cell compound that we have in that SC Elite V4. And actually, I'm gonna go grab that for a second so we can do a little bit of a push test comparison. But this feels much more similar to the fuel cell in the V3 than it does to that new SC Elite V4. So watch this. Push, nice soft push in here. In the Rebel V4, push, nice soft push in this guy as well. Now with the SC Elite here, you can see it's a little bit firmer as I'm pushing it in. We're not getting as much of that squish in here compared to this guy. You can see I can really just get my finger down in there. When I try to do that with the SC Elite, it kind of bounces right off, which is good. You want more energy return from a race shoe versus a training shoe like this. So with that, the foam that we're seeing in the fuel cell and the midsole here, it's a little bit different than that SC Elite. That is a 100% PEBA. This guy is a PEBA EVA blend. So the last generation that we saw in the V3, this was a supercritical TPU and EVA blend. And then this guy right here is going to have PEBA replacing the TPU. And so PEBA is going to have a little bit more energy return. However, I have had mixed results with the durability of PEBA in the past. So that's one of the things I'm really interested to see from this guy. How many miles can we get out of it? Now on the outsole here, we do see some nice rubber coverage, especially in the forefoot. And this is even a little better than we saw in V3 in terms of how the rubber is laid out. They've gone with a lot more texture. This should give us some better grip out there on the trails. And I've been running some light trails recently as I'm going to do school drop-offs with the new baby. And you know, you guys can see me running on the greenways here, and there's some muddy trail areas. So it'll be interesting to test this guy out. I would not love to run in the V3 in any off-road type of terrain, but this guy should have a little bit more grip for any of those off-road passes. Now heading down to the back, one curious thing is they've actually put less rubber coverage than on V3. And we'll see how these compare on the scale. It might be that they're trying to save some weight, but there's considerably less rubber than on V3, especially on the back here. And as you guys know, I'm a little bit of a heel scuffer, so we might see some wear and tear on V4, especially you can see my highest wear area on V3 was back here. We do have most of that covered, but it looks like I might be getting into some of this foam here on the lateral or outside area of V4, because you can see my wear pattern goes all the way back up here on V3. Now the design is a pretty big departure in the V4 from the V3. The V3 is super swoopy and rounded off. It's really simple. It's not much going on in this guy. With this, they've gone with a much more geometric look. Everything is angular, and I think I said this in my overview of the SC Elite V4, but we initially thought they were going with a little bit of an Adidas aesthetic in these guys, but in person, it's actually very unique. And I haven't seen any of these cutouts, specifically in this way with this kind of diamond gem pattern in any of these other shoes. It does look much different than what Adidas has going on. Now, just comparing it to the Boston 12 quickly to get a little bit of design comparison, you can see that the lines on the Boston 12, while they do have some of these sharp angled cutouts here, like up here in the midsole, and they have the little bevel on the top layer of Lightstrike Pro here, there's not as much as we have going on in this FuelCell midsole with all of these sharp ripples. It's a really cool look in person, and we do have this little Hoka hoof going on out here in the back, which is the same thing that we see on the SC Elite V4, and a lot of brands are moving now towards the Hoka hoof. That's something we saw in the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4 as well. Now, this version of the Rebel is pushing it more to be a daily trainer versus V3 here, which was still kind of a tempo, lightweight training shoe. This guy has gone up in stack a little bit, and it is very noticeable just looking and holding it in my hand. This heel stack is pretty big. It almost looks as tall as the Boston 12 here. It is not, but in person it looks like that. We'll have to see how it feels on the foot, but this looks like it'll be a nice comfortable option for walking around too, and for other use, not just running. Rebel V3 I did not love for using anything else other than running. Taking it occasionally to the gym, and it's light enough to do box jumps, squats, burpees, whatever. By the way, someone asked me the other day in the comments, very politely might I add, just kidding, but if I'd ever been in the gym. Yes, I have, and I use the Rebel for that sometimes. With this guy here, you still could use it for the gym, but it is going to have a little bit more cushion, so probably a little bit better for walking than we saw in V3. Now, the upper is a pretty big design departure from V3, but the material itself looks pretty similar, and you can see as I bring them a little bit closer here, the holes that we see in V3, you got that same type of breathable material in V4. It feels nearly identical to what we see in V3. Same thing for the padding out in the back, but they did get rid of the elf heel. So you can see in the V3 right here, that heel juts back just a little bit. In V4, we're not seeing that. It's a nice clean cutout, and it's the same thing that we see in the SC Elite V4. Now, one trend that I'm seeing in these racing shoes right now is that brands have gone with a little bit more padding up in the back than some shoes of old. So if you compare these guys, they have nearly identical uppers, which is wild because the Rebel V4 should have a little bit more structure and support for training, but that's not the case. The SC Elite V4 has nearly as much in the upper, but it is a really nice upper that should be pretty lightweight and keeps the Rebel looking clean as well. Now with the laces, they've gone with the same laces that we saw in the Rebel V3. There's not too much to complain about here. They're just nice, simple laces. I had no issues with lockdown, unlike that Adidas lacing setup, and the fit of the Rebel V3 was pretty good. I actually went up half a size in this, and it wasn't too long at all, but it did give me a little bit more room in the toes, and I think I might need to go up to a size 11 in general, but this guy here is a 10.5, which has been my primary size for a while, and it does feel a little bit shorter in my hands than an 11, as it should. Now, I'm not sure if this is a new rubber compound or not, but it does feel significantly stickier than V3, so we'll have to do a little bit of that squeak test here, and I think this might be the same rubber that we see on the SC Elite V4, which was extremely squeaky and really nice out there on the run. I only ran on it dry. I think it might have been slightly damp, but didn't do a real slick wet test yet with this rubber, but maybe that's an area where New Balance has improved this latest generation of shoes. So in terms of the specs of this guy, we got 30 in the heel and 24 in the forefoot for the 6mm drop. That is the absolute sweet spot for training running shoes. I love a 6mm drop. It's low enough to work for most runners, where if you have any issues with chunky heels, you're not going to be getting too much of that awkward feel, because sometimes when you have a 10mm drop platform, the heel, especially in some of these chunkier shoes which are above 30mm, can get a little bit in the way when running at slower paces. You're not going to get that in here likely, and it's also not too low to work your calves too much. Now that was an issue that I had a little bit in the Rebel V3, and some of these lower stack shoes, they will work your lower legs really good, and so this shoe isn't going to be as lower stack, but it still does not have a plate, which means it's going to be a good daily training option, and that's what I'm looking to use this shoe for. I've been running in the 1080 a lot, I've been running in the Vomero, I've been running in the Velocity Nitro 3, but this guy might slot in as that new high mileage daily trainer, put it through the ringer, see how it does on a 100-mile week. Alright guys, we got to get some miles in this thing, but before we do, let's do a little bit of a weigh-in. Alright, right shoe. Whoa. 223 grams. Is that real? That's lighter than the SC Elite. That is crazy. Yeah, 223. 245. It's a madness thing. Left shoe, 224. So they're only 1 gram apart. That's really good QA, but the weight on this thing is absolutely insane. That puts it in line with shoes like the Saucony Endorphin Pro 3. It's lighter than that new Tier Racer. It's lighter than its bigger brother here, the SC Elite V4. And let's do a little quick test on the V3 to see if it's lighter than that too. Yeah, and it's significantly lighter than the V3. This is a half size bigger, but that wouldn't warrant a 14 gram difference. I'm guessing in the same size, this one would probably be 233 maybe. So it's still going to be 10 grams lighter than the last version, and we get all that nice rubber coverage in the bottom. So that's what the benefit is going to be from switching from that supercritical TPU EVA blend then to this one having that PEBA. That PEBA is going to lighten it up a ton. Wow, I am impressed at that. I want to see how this does versus some of its other competitors in terms of weight. Alright guys, so I just brought out a bunch of shoes that compete in spirit, if not exactly on paper, with this guy. So these are all lower stack lightweight shoes that we can run fast in. So we got the Mach 5, the Adidas Takumi Sen, the Brooks Hyperion Max, the Mizuno Wave Rebellion Flash 2, and the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4. So first up, let's check the Mach 5. So this guy is coming in at 228. Okay, so that's pretty comparable to the Rebel V4, and this is also a half size smaller though. So it's again going to be 8 to 10 grams more than the Rebel V4. Let's check Takumi Sen. Now this is a little bit different because it's a 5K, 10K racer, but a lot of runners use this as more of that short distance speed training interval shoe, which is similar to how you could use a Rebel, although they are moving this maybe a little bit more to the daily trainer category in this version. But let us check the Takumi Sen. 204, so that's going to be much lighter, and as it should be, it's 100% of this racing foam. Alright guys, next up here, Brooks Hyperion Max. Oops, this is the right shoe. I was trying to do all left. I grabbed the wrong one. But Brooks Hyperion Max, 224. So very similar, and these are the same size. So that's good to know. This is going to be about as light as the Brooks Hyperion Max. Alright, next up we got the Mizuno Wave Rebellion Flash 2. I guess I got another right foot. So we got some right foots and left foots. Foot. Woo, this one is super heavy. I actually never did a weigh-in with this guy when I got it because I was at Duke when it came in. This is at 265. So that is a pretty thick guy. Let's check this guy against the Boston 12 just because I'm curious. Yeah, that puts it more in line with the Boston 12. So some of these plated shoes are going to be a little bit heavier. And let's check the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4 just to get a little bit of a sense. And that's at 250. So the plated training shoes are going to be a little bit heavier. And then we have these lightweight non-plated speed shoes, which are really going to be great for picking up the pace on shorter intervals. And with this guy, because of how much stack it has, I think this is a good daily training option too. So I'm super excited to put a lot of miles in this over the next week or so, and because I've been running in so many of these plated shoes, I haven't really been doing anything in this category of shoe here. And what I loved about the Rebel V3 was how simple it was. Now they have removed a little bit of that simplicity in this guy. You can see there's a little bit more of a rocker up front here than what we see on the Rebel V3, and that is going to change the character of a little bit out there on the run. So we're going to do initial fit and feel, but this is one of the most excited I've been about a new shoe in a while, because yes guys, I do love running in all the plated shoes. But this is the category of shoes where I really feel like I'm building fitness in these guys. They don't give you that much support. Yes, we do see some PEBA in here. Yes, we do see a higher stack, but this is gonna make you work for those miles, make you work for that pace a little bit more than a plated shoe. And with all the dessert I've been eating in these plated shoes, it's time for us to eat some quinoa and tofu in the Rebel V4. Man, I love my shoes. It's a lot of cleanup though. And a lot of miles we gotta get in this year. We call this the David Goggins of running shoes because it stays hard. Alright guys, time for a little initial fit and feel, and then we're gonna go out there for the run. So I'm gonna do something a little bit different today. I'm gonna do left foot in the Rebel. I'm not gonna run Rebel V4. I'm not gonna run in both of these at the same time, but then right foot in the Rebel V3 just so I can do a little comparison on how they feel. Now remember, the Rebel V3 is a half size bigger, so just keep that in mind. But I want to just do a little comparison test and how the foam feels, how it feels on stepping. Wow, first stepping, it is very comfortable in these. And I do have a decent amount of space up here on the forefoot. And that's one thing with these New Balance shoes that I do like, is that they tend to be pretty roomy. One interesting thing is I do have to tie these laces look at that. It looks like the top of a football. That's crazy. I've never had to tie an upper this tight on any shoe. That is wild. So this is going to be a very roomy upper. I think even we can compare it to the V3. But even if we compare it to this guy, I think this is going to be a little bit more room. So this Phantom fit, shout out Danny Phantom, is a pretty roomy upper, I guess, that we have on the Rebel series here. I don't remember on the SC Elite. I'll see if I can grab some B-roll of that for you if I have energy while I'm editing this. But I don't remember on the SC Elite having to crank down these laces super tight. All right, now we're going to get the... There we go. That's better for you guys. Now we're going to get the Rebel V3. And yeah, look at that. I don't have to crank the laces down as tight in this one to get a lockdown. You can see in the V4, there's probably, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch versus I have well over an inch on the upper here. So they changed something with this upper to make it roomier. And remember guys, the Rebel V4 is half a size smaller even, so it's nothing to do with my feet. That's a little funny. Alright, let's see. Well, first, you can see the Rebel V4 rubber is much stickier. Yeah, Rebel V3, just look at that, sliding around. V4, yeah, we're gonna get much better grip out of V4. That's crazy. Little walking here, it's definitely noticeable that we have more stack in the V4, and it also generally just feels like a little bit of a stiffer, more built up shoe walking around here. V3 was very flexible, and I didn't do a little bend test on V4. Let's do that really quickly so we can see the difference. But V3 was very flexible. That's one of the things I liked about it for faster running, because sometimes that can help build up leg strength. All right, so V3 flex test. We already know this guy folds like a sandwich. Boom. Great for foot strength. V4, let's check it out. Oh, we're just gonna get the forefoot. Not as much flexibility. Now that's okay, and that doesn't mean it's not gonna be a nice, tough, cushioned shoe, but it just means we might not be building up as much foot strength. We might not have as much control over the shoe with a less flexible platform, but you do see we have a little bit of that toe flex there. You know what, I said I wasn't gonna run in them both, but I feel like at this point I have to just do a little jog. just to give you some initial insights on it. All right. Also, by the way, guys, before we get too deep into running in both of these, shout out to Kieran from the Run Testers, because that man does this all the time. I don't know him personally, but he's a great reviewer, and he's one of the first people, if not the only person I've ever seen on YouTube do this running with both shoes thing. So that's my man Kieran. Big shout out. We got any shoes today? Huh? Do we have any shoes today? Shoes? Yeah. No, I'm not. I'm just messing around. I'll see ya. Oh man, watch out for the school bus. We got a school bus today, but no Honda Odyssey. Now that's a max cushion cruiser right there. All right, quick jog test, Rebel V3 versus Rebel V4. Let's see which one of these are more nimble. Oh man, I'm winded. That was completely silly. I'm very winded. Shuttle sprints, I think that's the politically correct name for that exercise. Wow, I am not in basketball shape, let's just say that. Anyway, V3 feels, and I know we got to do more running in the V4 to really tell, but V3 felt a lot more flexible. You can even see here as I'm lifting up my heel, look how much that flexes, versus V4 as I'm doing the same thing. You're not going to see that toe flexion that we get in V3. This just feels like a much more natural shoe, which is what I liked about it so much in V3. It's not a minimalist barefoot shoe, but it's kind of that in-between thing where it didn't have the same stack as all those other shoes out there. Now V4, and I'll give you the full thoughts after we do this little run here. Well, first thing, the styling is absolutely sick. And I do have the blout fit on to match. But aside from the styling, it feels a little stiffer, or a lot stiffer, and a little firmer, which I'm surprised about. And I can definitely feel the additional rubber, which is gonna be a good thing for some wet weather. Today we don't have wet weather. Also shout out to USPS, putting in the work. But yeah, today we don't have wet weather, so I don't need that grip. I don't know, this feels like more of a built up daily trainer. Almost like a Pegasus or something after that. I mean, compared to the Rebel V3. Now we have to do a little run here. Now plan for this run today. Actually, let's go change shoes and I'll tell you the plan for the run. Before I change here, guys, I cannot get over the odd fit on V4. I really, look at that. Look how tight I have to crank these laces to get a lockdown. That's really weird. Versus V3, it's just not, it's not like that. So I don't know what they changed in V4. But the fit is completely different. It's like a totally different shoe from V3, at least in this initial fit and feel. It feels like a completely different model altogether. Okay, so plan for the run is to get, I don't know, I think I need an hour. I have not been doing a lot of just running out here in the neighborhood by myself. I've been doing a lot of stroller runs with Ravesy Boy, which is great, but I don't get that same aerobic stimulus because I'm going a little bit slower with the stroller. I'm working my muscles a little bit more. This morning we were up at Boyce Park, and those hills, man, just getting down to the greenway from Boyce Park, you have to go down this massive hill, and then to get back up, it's, I don't know, a quarter of a mile, half a mile straight uphill, pushing a 35-pound toddler up that. So my legs got a little bit worked. I need some just nice, steady aerobic miles. Probably not steady pace. I don't know if I'm going to be getting down near marathon pace, but just nice cruising miles. And yeah, fit on the right one here is even weirder. They did something weird. I'm not a huge fan of this upper, I've got to say. But if the midsole performs well, then all will be forgiven. But the upper is odd. Odd fitting upper. So yeah, go out for 8-ish miles. I think that's what we'll shoot for. 8 miles, I just took some tailwind, so it'll be good. And then just nice, steady cruising. Maybe some pace pickup in the back half to see if these puppies can sing. But my plan is to put a lot more miles on them this week. All right, now that we got them both on, let's do a little bit of... Oh, so we're not even getting as much squeegee as those SC Elite V4s had. So I don't know if this is a slightly different rubber or what. This is definitely a stiffer overall shoe than V3, and it just feels a little bit more like a daily trainer. Also, something I'm not loving with this latest batch of shoes that I've been testing is just how chunky the heels feel. And there is a way to make a high stack shoe without the heel feeling so awkward, and I don't know what it is about these shoes. Almost every single one that I've tested recently has this feel. The one that doesn't have it is the 1080 from New Balance, that doesn't have it. And then the Brooks Ghost Max, it doesn't have it either. But a lot of the shoes that I've been testing, there's something awkward going on. I don't know if it's with where the foam cuts out here, but brands, this is the point that I want you guys to listen to. Try to do something different with your heels so it doesn't feel so awkward in these daily training shoes for walking and slow jogging. Let me step up off my soapbox. Let's get these miles in and then I'll report back. Now, I would have probably never chosen to buy this color if it weren't the only option that I could buy, but it actually looks really nice. And with how much I've been running with the kids in the stroller, this might become just my daily, everyday running and walking shoe, because I like how it looks casual for everything. All right, just finished up, and I think this time we're gonna get a little golden hour action. We fought the sun and we won. But I'm not a rapper. Hey, pull up in the Tesla. That's my guy Justin. We gotta take these off real quick and switch into the slides. And first thing, let me tell you, this is a completely different shoe to the V3 here. It feels like they went in the not completely opposite direction, but they just did something different with it. And I'm not sure yet if it's gonna be a good thing or a bad thing, but it is a very different shoe. And that EVA, man, don't let them trick you with the PEBA EVA blend. That EVA is what's kicking. All right. All right, guys, 8 miles in the books. I came in at around a 7:40 average pace, rocking the Blue Outfit and the New Balance Rebel V4. And first up, let me tell you, this is a completely different shoe to that Rebel V3. And before we get deep into the analysis here, there's just one word that was popping up in my head as I was running in the shoe, because over the past few days, I'm realizing that I do like almost every shoe that I run in, and someone else pointed that recently out too. There's only a few shoes that I haven't really gotten along with over the past year. There's been the Hyperion Max, there's been the Ghost Max at first, there's a few other shoes in there, but for the most part, I can find things I like about almost every shoe I run in. And that's really the goal with this channel. It's not to tell you if a shoe is good or not, it's to find out what a shoe is best for, because with how much research and development, how much advancement has come with the tech that we're putting in these shoes here, most of these shoes do have a place in somebody's rotation out there. And my goal with how much mileage I run, how many different types of runs I do, is to find out what each shoe really shines at. And so the word that kept popping into my head out there on the run is ikigai. Now, I'm a brutish American, so I probably butchered the pronunciation of that. I'll throw it up on the screen. I read it in a book, the Blue Zones book, which I read when I first got into running. And that book is all about how can we extend our lifespan by implementing things into our day-to-day life, like our diet, exercise, our social life, community, that improve our quality of life. And so what ikigai is, it's that thing that pops you out of bed each morning. It's the purpose. It's what you feel like you're just driven to do and need to do. And so for each shoe that comes in through the office here, I'm trying to find that shoe's ikigai, that shoe's purpose. What is that one thing that shoe is better at doing than anything else out there? Now with the Rebel V3 here, the purpose of this guy was being a low, lightweight, very flexible shoe that had a natural feeling, but a little bit more cushion than a true minimal or barefoot shoe out there. So this thing was great at helping build foot strength, at help building lower leg strength, and being a great alternative to some of those plated training shoes which have been so popular. And I know the Topo Cyclone came along and kind of knocked this off of the top spot. I never ran in that shoe, so for me, this was still the absolute best at what it offered in a lightweight, non-plated package. Now in the Rebel V4 here, what I kept realizing when I was out there cranking through those miles today, and boy was I cranking, it was a little bit of a grind. I was definitely not trying to push the pace too much, but what is this shoe's purpose? What is this shoe really gonna be best at? Now with the added stack, with a little bit more of that cushion, comes a little bit of a stiffer feel. It's definitely not as flexible as the V3, and it didn't feel as immediately bouncy as that foam either. And that's the key thing here with the new FuelCell formulation. It really feels like a complete departure from what we had in that old supercritical TPU EVA blend. It's like a brand new foam. And what it seems like New Balance is doing is making the FuelCell line maybe a little bit firmer, a little bit faster, than having that fresh foam line be the super soft cushion shoe. So in the past, FuelCell has been the fast line and fresh foam has been more of the relaxed daily training line, but that's even clearer. I've been running in the 1080 recently. I ran the SC Elite V4 a few days ago. That was very firm with the new FuelCell. Then I ran this today, and it has a firmer character to it. It almost reminded me of, and guys, don't drop your jaws to the floor when I say this, but it almost reminded me of the Adidas Audi Zero SL. And I know this is a PEBA EVA blend, but I think there's a little bit more emphasis on the EVA here. And I told you guys a few weeks ago, the cardinal rule of EVA now is it's not going to be broken in until there's some creases in it. And you don't typically see a PEBA foam crease like this, but you can see, and I'm trying to make sure I get all the right angles for you. Yeah, look right there. You can see we're already getting some creases in this foam, so it seems like this is going to be a shoe that requires some break-in. And I gotta say, right out of the box, the ride was a little stiff, it was a little firm, even as I was pushing the pace down into that steadier zone. And like I said, I wasn't trying to progress the pace too much, and even on those strides, it did feel like a little bit of a firmer shoe. Now that's okay, because there still is a place for a firm shoe, and it still does have that nice fast character that we expect from the Rebel line. And that is the key identity that I can tell you it's retained after this first run in the shoe. It still does feel like a fast shoe. It still did respond really nicely when I picked up the pace down to some strides. I went down to about 6 flat pace today, which isn't the fastest I'll go in the shoe. I'll plan to do some 5:30 pace, or even down to interval pace around 5 flat, but it felt really good at around that 6 minute per mile, half marathon, 10K pace for me, and it can do that work really nicely. Now it is a really light shoe, but it didn't feel as light on foot as the last version, I think, because the stack has gone up a bit, and that is noticeable. You are gonna get a little bit more cushion in here, which does offer a bit of protection, but you are losing that ground feel. Now, I felt like the rubber coverage was pretty decent, but you can see here, and let me brighten it up a little bit, but you can see here with the exposed foam, we are getting some wear and tear already one run in, and we also are starting to wear down on this rubber flat already first run. So it doesn't seem like, even though they added some rubber here, it might not be the most durable shoe. Now, I like to evaluate these non-plated shoes with their flexibility, and a big difference between this one and the V3 is that the flexion point is really up here on the forefoot, and you don't get much flex in the back of the platform at all, and it is really noticeable out there with that added stack. But with that, I didn't feel like the stack, the addition of that few millimeters of foam, was protecting my feet as much. And matter of fact, it felt like my feet needed to kind of work hard to get the shoe going, and that's not a bad thing at all. That's why I love running in non-plated shoes, because it can help strengthen your feet and lower legs, whereas running in plated shoes all the time isn't going to help build as much strength, because they give you more support and speed assistance when trying to run fast. So this thing does still have a more minimalist character, but it is going to be a little bit of a firmer feel, and that's the headline here that I'm the most surprised about. At least out of the box, this felt much firmer than I expected. However, with it being an EVA, and I do think, I'm not sure what the PEBA content is in here. If you do know that, I believe New Balance released it, so drop it below if you know. I do think this is going to require at least 30 miles of break-in, so I'm going to hold my full thoughts on it until we get to that point. Now, in terms of the fit, it is a little bit of an awkward fitting upper. As you saw, it had that football lacing thing kind of looking like the top of it here, but out there on the run, I didn't have any issues with the lockdown. The lockdown was very secure. I did feel like I was maybe getting some, I don't want to say the H word, but some warm areas of the shoe, and I am wearing merino wool socks today. I just had the merino wool features socks on, so I'm not sure if it's because of that. So I'm gonna reserve judgment on that as well, but I do want to mention it here because it's the first run review. I should tell you all about my experience in the shoe. I did feel like the heel lockdown is solid. It kept my foot in place. I had no issues with slipping around here, and we did have enough room up in the toe box, especially compared with V3 here. They did give you enough room to splay those toes. So in general, I'm a little bit surprised that the PEBA is not coming through more, but it is still a lightweight shoe, as you can see from that scale, and it still does have that fast character, but I'm not completely sold that all the changes they made on this make it a better shoe than the V3 for what the intended purpose of that V3 was, which was a fast, lightweight training shoe. So to put this thing through the paces, I'm gonna get a ton more miles in it. I'm gonna take it down to that sub 6 minute pace range, try it at some 5K pace, some 10K pace, some longer, harder workouts, see if that additional stack in here really does the job. And I'm even gonna take it up past that 90-minute mark to see if that extra cushioning in here makes it a better long run shoe. So if I think of anything else I want to say about the shoe as I'm popping around the house, listening to Currency, cleaning, doing work, I'll flip the camera back on and throw them at the end here in the odds and ends section. We'll do a little bit of a new thing.
All right guys, welcome to the first odds and ends wrap up here. Now, as I was in the shower, I was thinking about something I was actually thinking about out on the run, and that is the changes that New Balance is making to their 2024 lineup and how that affects what they've done to the Rebel V4 here. Now, they have the 1080, which we see here. They have the SC Trainer V2, which I just put away because I'm trying to clean up my office here. What do you think about this? I put all the plated fast white racers down there, and then up here we got my car rotation. But anyway, I think they're clearing room for the Balos by making this guy a little bit firmer, because that Balos is also going to be a PEBA EVA blend, but it was much softer than this when I remember feeling it at TRE, and that's also going to have a more premium expensive vibe. Now this thing is 130 or 140, so not nearly as expensive, and it's just a different overall shoe than that Balos.
I will see you guys tomorrow.